We're live. Take it away, Gary.
Well, good afternoon, Charlottesville, Virginia Conference, First United Methodist Church. Thank you for joining us for our midweek announcements. I'm Gary Heaton, the lead pastor. Phil, turn your volume down.
Oh, my
I can't believe you just, the neophyte I have to deal with.
Let me figure this out. All right. All right, we're ready.
You'd think you'd get the technology right.
I know. It was my turn today. We'll figure it out. All right, what were you saying?
So I'm glad everybody has joined us, and we want to let you know that the ministry of the church is continuing to go on and thrive, even in the midst of some of the kind of troubling times that we're watching and taking in on our screens. But we're glad you've joined us on this screen to let you know what's going on in the church. First thing I wanted to encourage you to do is stay connected to God and to each other. One of the things we're offering is a summer book study. Right now, I'll do a weekly video on the book Canoeing the Mountains, which is Todd Bolsinger's book on church leadership in a changing world. Later on this summer, we're going to do Dr. Kendi's How to Be an Anti-Racist, and that will be shared like Canoeing the Mountains as a Facebook post. And we'll be inviting you to read the books with us, watch the devotional video, and then through the week respond and have dialogue and conversation back and forth over YouTube.
Nope.
Oh, over Facebook.
Yes.
So please consider being a part of that. These are both fairly significant books for our day and time and the things that are going on in this COVID and social injustice protest in our church and in our country.
Yeah, so you talked about commenting on the Facebook comment section, and you'll be responding to them throughout the week. Your video is going to post on Monday. Did you say all that?
I'll post it on Monday, and then I'll look to it each day to reply to people who have questions, comments about the changing world and what they kind of think about the church. Next week, we're going to be talking about singing and some of the tools of discipleship that have always been a part of our spiritual walk, which we're not able to use right now. So I'd love to be hearing about what you think about that.
As Gary said, the work of the church continues, and we really just want to stop and say thank you. A really big thank you for your ongoing contributions, the gifts of your tithes and your offerings. That kind of work that the church does allows us to continue to meet our financial obligations. The mission and ministries of the church that we committed to at the beginning of the year, we are still on track to meet those obligations. So all of the outreach and witness ministries, apportionments, all of those things that this church has been directly involved in or working with that require and are in great need of our financial resources to help them continue are still being discussed and still being paid by the finance ministry team. So thank you to the finance team for continuing to work through this. Thank you to everyone out there who is continuing to give generously to the church so that the work of the church can still happen. People still need to be fed. They still need to be clothed. All of this stuff still needs to happen. So thank you.
And even though our mission trips are not sending people out to places around the world or around the country, we are meeting the obligations we've made to those mission and outreach programs because they still have to maintain their staff and maintain connection with those ministries. And you're making that possible with your continued faithful giving to the church. Our denomination, as well as our church, as well as local charities, are depending on us right now. And First United Methodist Church is really coming through. Thank you.
Gary, why don't you tell us about annual conference?
So yes, for the first time in my entire ministry, I'm having annual conference next week, but I'm not going to Roanoke or to Hampton.
Where are you going to go?
I'm going to go to my office in my house and go online. The executive session of the clergy will be meeting, and we will be doing the work of the annual conference, looking to those who've been called into ordained ministry and talking about the future of the church. But it's all going to be an online annual conference this year. So I'll give a report on that annual conference. I'm not sure if Gail Kennan, who is our lay delegate to annual conference, will be able to give a report on that, but you'll be hearing from her and I after annual conference about what the church sees in the future.
I thought it was just clergy session that was online. So
it is just clergy right now, but the laity have got to have something to say, and this Methodist church, the laity are leading the way.
That might be in September.
Hopefully so.
But we'll see. Who knows what September is going to look like, or how and when people will be meeting in September. We can barely keep track of what's happening tomorrow. Speaking of things that are happening tomorrow, it is my hope that you have seen Gary and I modeling lots of different ways that we as Christians, as people of faith, and as the Church of Jesus Christ might continue to engage in the ministry to which we have been called to do in this world. There is a large amount of pain, anger, frustration, and fear that still permeates through this world in all kinds of different ways. And it is my hope that you have seen us model different ways that we might respond to that pain and that hurting. In our baptismal covenant, and when we receive new members, we all commit to do the work of the church and to offer ourselves to God through our prayers, our presence, our gifts, our service, and our witness. And so in each of those ways, we can continue to be the church for a world that desperately needs the gospel of Jesus Christ and the good news that comes from knowing and having a relationship with God. And so when we talk about things like police violence or the protests in the streets or COVID-19 or how people are still filing for unemployment, how schools aren't going to look like they're returning back to normal in the fall. Ellen and I read that 140 pages last night. It is going to be nuts, y'all. But all of these things still offer a way for the church to be at work, for the church to do good things together. And so if you are gifted in prayer, through your prayers, we've offered video devotionals about how to be in prayer for people. Through our presence, you saw Reverend Heaton marching in Front Royal on Facebook the other day. Through our gifts, how we continue to use the resources that God has given us to still make contributions to people. And sometimes your gift is not always financial. Sometimes that gift is your presence on a phone call as well, or a letter or an email, or making masks, which we'll talk about in a minute. Your gift of service, that's that mask making component, and your witness, using your voice and any platforms you have to further calls for justice, for peace, for reconciliation, and for sharing the love of Jesus Christ. Gary?
I don't know how that happens.
All right. So all of those things are ways and means that we hope that people might engage with the world at this point. And then even tomorrow night, Reverend Collins and I are offering a Bible study outside with masks and social distancing. And we encourage you to make those choices that feel right to you, to follow the Spirit's lead into doing things that keep you safe. And if you feel safe doing it, to do so. It's kind of like wearing a seat belt.
Well, it's funny you would bring that up, Phil, because when I was growing up in the 70s, I got my driver's license, and we didn't have these fancy seat belts that kind of retract and come out and you click them on. You had to dig in behind the seat to find them, and oftentimes you just would leave them back there. Now it's a matter of course to put your seat belt on.
All right.
Well, you know what?
What I'm hearing
this
from
is a
you,
seat belt. This is the new seat belt.
What I'm hearing from you is that you got knocked in the head a couple times driving around.
Well, when the square knot of the rope that I used, yeah, as a seatbelt.
What was your first car, Gary?
I had a 1973 Camaro 6-cylinder, all show, no go.
So you didn't really need a seatbelt.
No, it wouldn't go fast.
So masks are like seatbelts. You have them, but it's up to you if you use them to keep you safe when you need it. So on speaking of those masks, we still have a number of masks in the Welcome Center here at the church that volunteers are still making. They are beautiful and wonderful. They work well. And so if you are in need of a mask, please make an appointment either through contacting the church office just to swing by and grab one real quick. There's upper rooms and other things that are still available there as well.
And Phil, I would just kind of close this time by reminding everybody, while there are more and more reasons to be out and to be gathering and to be moving into a less isolated situation, it really is time for the people of God to demonstrate care for one another. And if there is a symbol that shows you care for the people around you, it's wearing a mask when you go out. So with that, people of God, be safe and care for others. We look forward to seeing you in worship on Sunday morning. God bless you all.
All right. Oh, yes, I'm sure.